My parents didn't notice I moved out, but now they're guilt-tripping me to abandon my life and become the backup caretaker they never deserved. I'm the youngest of 5, and when I say youngest, I don't mean just by a little bit. There's a 7-year gap between me and my next sibling. To be honest, it always felt like I was invisible growing up. My siblings all had their own stuff going on, and I guess my parents just assumed that because I wasn't sick or having mental health issues like the rest of them, I didn't need them. I'm not trying to be all woe is me or anything, but it's the truth. The others were always in and out of hospitals, therapy, you name it, and me? I was just there, the glass child they call it, right? You can see me but you don't really notice me. I was fine with that. For the most part, I spent a lot of time by myself, playing video games, reading, keeping to myself. I had to learn to entertain myself because, well, no one else was really around to do it. It's not like I was expected to take care of my siblings though. I've seen other people talk about how they had to sacrifice their childhoods to take care of brothers or sisters. But that wasn't me. My parents handled all that, so credit where credit's due. But because I wasn't causing problems, because I wasn't in crisis mode like my siblings, I just kind of fell through the cracks. I didn't need help, so I didn't get any. I don't think my parents did it on purpose or anything. It's just that when you've got 4 kids who are constantly dealing with health stuff, the one who's healthy is kind of an afterthought. They were always so busy with hospital visits, doctor's appointments, and school meetings for the others, that I just became this kid who didn't cause trouble and didn't get attention. It's like I was invisible, but not in the tragic movie kind of way. Just in a practical we've got our hands full kind of way. Anyway, I wasn't completely alone. When I was about 9, I made 2 friends, Mia and Clara, who were basically in the same boat. Their families weren't great either, and we kind of found each other in this unspoken way. We just clicked, you know? We understood what it was like to be ignored, to be left out, and that bonded us. Over time, they became more like my real family than my actual family ever did. We were inseparable all through school, and we stuck together even after high school ended. We went to college together, graduated together, and eventually moved to a new state together. It was like we built our own little family out of the scraps of what our real families couldn't give us. As for my parents, we didn't talk much once I left home. I guess that was to be expected since we never really talked when I was still living there either. My mom would text me now and then, mostly small talk stuff like, how's school, or what are you doing for work, that kind of thing. Our relationship was super surface level, but honestly, that was an improvement from my teenage years. Back in high school, we barely spoke at all. So yeah, I didn't expect much from them, and I didn't ask for much either. I think what really made it clear how disconnected I was from them was this one phone call from my mom last year. It was a few days before Thanksgiving, and she called me out of nowhere. Now we never call each other, so right off the bat, I knew something was up. The last time I had spoken to her on the phone was maybe a year before that, when she told me about the time and place of one of my sister's funerals. That's how little we talked. So anyway, she calls me and asks what time I'm coming for Thanksgiving. I'm sitting there like, wait, what? Because I had no idea they were even planning anything for Thanksgiving. It wasn't like we had some big family tradition or anything. In fact, in my whole life, I can remember maybe 3 times that they even tried to do Thanksgiving or Christmas. It just wasn't a thing in my family. I told her that I already had plans. I mean, I was going on a ski trip with Mia and Clara, so it wasn't like I could just drop everything and come over, even if I wanted to. Plus, I lived 2 states away, and I would have needed to book a plane ticket months ago if I was going to come. But she acted like I was just being difficult, and then started guilt-tripping me, saying she was going to be all alone because my dad was going to spend the day visiting my brother in the facility he's in. He's a 2-hour drive from them, so apparently, my dad was going to be gone most of the day. I get it, I really do. But she gave me 3 days' notice. 3 days. And I was supposed to just magically show up and make her feel better. I told her I couldn't come, and she got mad, saying I didn't care about the family or some crap like that. I repeated that I already had plans, and she hung up on me. After the call, I sat there for a bit, feeling guilty but also kind of pissed. Like, I hadn't heard from them in forever, and now all of a sudden, I'm the bad guy for not coming home for Thanksgiving. I scrolled through our old texts just to make sure I hadn't missed anything. But nope, nothing about Thanksgiving, nothing about wanting to see me. She just sprung it on me last minute, like I was supposed to drop everything and be there. I ended up sending her a text later that night, saying that I had a ski trip booked for Christmas and wouldn't be able to come for that either, but I'd love to catch up with her and Dad after the new year. You know, trying to be nice about it. She didn't reply. A few days after that whole Thanksgiving mess, I was still trying to shake off the weird feeling. You know when something just nags at you and you can't quite figure out why? That's how I felt about the way my mom had tried to make me feel bad for not coming home. Like she calls me out of nowhere, guilt trips me for not being there. But at the same time, she never actually told me they were doing Thanksgiving. It's like they expected me to be a mind reader or something. But anyway, I had pretty much moved on by then. I was getting ready for my ski trip with Mia and Clara. We'd been planning it for months, and I was super excited. The three of us hadn't had a proper vacation in forever, so we were looking forward to just hanging out and relaxing. Then, out of nowhere, I get this text from my dad. Now my dad almost never texts me, so I figured it was going to be important. But instead of something reasonable, he hits me with, "If you don't come home for Christmas, I'm stopping your college payments." At first I actually laughed, like, what? I graduated 3 years ago. What payments? It was so out of left field. I had to read it twice to make sure I wasn't missing something. I thought maybe he was confused, or he was talking about someone else, so I sent him a text back, reminding him that I had already graduated, and that if he thought he was still paying for my college, then he needed to check his bank account, because someone was scamming him. I thought that would be the end of it. Honestly, I figured he'd feel stupid once he realized I wasn't in school anymore. But no, a few hours later, I get another text from him, this time saying that I was being selfish and ungrateful. He threw in a bunch of stuff about how they'd sacrificed so much for me and my siblings, and how I didn't appreciate any of it. Okay, first of all, I never asked for anything from them. Second, I didn't even know they were paying for my college, because my grandma was the one who covered it. She told me straight up that she didn't want my parents messing with my education, so she took care of everything herself. So yeah, I had no idea what my dad was even talking about. At this point, I'm kind of mad. Like, I get it if they're stressed out with my siblings and all, but guilt-tripping me about stuff they didn't even do? That's a whole new level. So I texted back, being as polite as I could manage, and said something like, "I'm sorry you feel that way, but Grandma paid for my college. I'm happy to catch up after the holidays, but I already have plans." I thought that would shut it down, but nope. My dad decides to go full drama mode and starts texting me about how I've abandoned the family, how I'm turning my back on them, and that he's done helping me out if I won't make an effort. By this point, I'm just staring at my phone like, what is happening? Abandoned the family? I've been living on my own for years, and they barely even noticed. And now, all of a sudden, because I won't drop my life and rush back for Christmas, I'm the bad guy? I wanted to just ignore it, but I couldn't stop thinking about it. The more I thought, the more pissed off I got. It's like they hadn't spoken to me in months, hadn't bothered to check in or ask how I was doing, but the second they needed something, it was my responsibility to make everything better. I was supposed to be their backup plan or something. So I called Mia and Clara to vent. They both said the same thing, that it sounded like my parents were just using me as a guilt trip. Mia said that they probably wanted me back home for Christmas so they wouldn't feel bad about themselves, not because they actually wanted to see me. Clara, as usual, didn't hold back and said straight up, "Screw them. You don't owe them anything." I decided to sleep on it and cool off before responding again. But as I'm lying there, my phone buzzes again. It's my dad, but this time the text is short and cold. He says, "If you don't come home, don't bother coming back at all." I read that, and honestly, I just felt numb. Like, how did we get here? How did we go from not talking for months to basically disowning me because I wasn't coming for Christmas? It didn't even feel real. I stared at the message for a long time, and part of me wanted to fire back and say something nasty. I wanted to call them out on all the times they ignored me, on all the times I felt like I didn't even exist in that house. But instead, I just didn't respond. I put my phone down, rolled over, and tried to sleep. I didn't want to get dragged into some big family drama right before the holidays. I didn't want to deal with the guilt trips, the accusations, or whatever other crap they were going to throw at me. So I just left it. The next day, I woke up to more texts, this time from my mom. She didn't say much, just that they were disappointed in me, that they didn't understand why I was being so distant, and that they hoped I'd change my mind. I couldn't help but laugh a little because distant didn't even begin to cover it. I'd been distant my whole life, but they were just now noticing. I ignored the texts again and focused on getting ready for the ski trip. Mia and Clara were pumped, and honestly, I was too. It felt like the perfect escape from all the family nonsense. We hit the road the next day, and for the first time in a long time, I didn't think about my parents. I didn't feel guilty. I didn't feel sad. I just felt free. But of course, things couldn't stay peaceful forever. Just when I thought I could move past it, I got another message from my mom, this time right in the middle of the trip. She wasn't giving up. She said that if I didn't come home soon, they'd have to start making decisions about the future without me. Decisions that I wouldn't like. That's when it clicked. They were planning something bigger than just Christmas. Maybe they were talking about one of my brothers or something with the house. I didn't know what, but suddenly it made sense why they were pushing so hard. They didn't want me around just for the holidays. They wanted me back in the fold for some bigger reason. And honestly, that realization was like a punch in the gut. All this time I thought they were just being clingy or feeling lonely. But it was never about me, not really. It was about what they could get from me. I was done. So after that whole mess with my parents trying to guilt trip me, I thought things would just die down. I ignored their texts, went on the ski trip, and tried to focus on the fact that I had my own life, my own plans, and I wasn't going to let them drag me back into their world of guilt and expectations. But of course, it wasn't that simple. I was back home, just getting settled into my usual routine, when I got a message from my older brother, Jake. Now, I hadn't talked to Jake in months, probably longer. Actually, Jake was the one sibling who, when we were growing up, I thought would maybe understand me a little. He wasn't as sick as my other brothers, so I always figured we could have had something more. But he was always too wrapped up in his own life, whatever. Anyway, seeing his name pop up on my phone surprised me. His message was simple: "Hey, we need to talk." I didn't know what he wanted, but I wasn't in the mood for more family drama. I texted back, "About what?" A few minutes later, he calls me. I debated whether to answer, but curiosity got the better of me, so I pick up the phone. And before I can even say hello, he jumps straight into it. "Mom and Dad have been talking about making you the legal guardian for one of the boys when they're gone." I swear I almost dropped the phone. My heart was racing, and I just sat there, stunned, for a few seconds. Was this some kind of joke? Like, after all these years of barely being in my life, now they're just going to dump this responsibility on me? "What the hell are you talking about?" I finally managed to ask. Jake sighed, like I'm the one being unreasonable. "You know how things are with Mom and Dad. They've got a lot on their plate with the other boys, and they're not going to be around forever. They need to know someone's going to step up and take care of things when they're gone." I could feel my blood boiling. And they think that someone is me? After everything? After all the ignoring and guilt tripping, they just assume I'm going to drop everything and take over their mess? Jake didn't seem to get why I was so upset. "Look, I know it's a lot, but you're the only one who's really stable. The rest of us, we've got our own issues." I almost laughed. "Yeah, well, maybe you guys should have thought about that before now." "I didn't even know this was a thing. They never told me they were going to talk to you about it," he said. "But I figured you should know before they tried to spring it on you." I was pissed. This wasn't just about Christmas or Thanksgiving anymore. This was bigger. They were planning something long-term, and they hadn't even thought to talk to me until now, when it was convenient for them. They hadn't spoken to me in years, and now they wanted me to step in as the responsible one. No, just no. "So what, they've been discussing this behind my back?" I asked, still trying to wrap my head around it. Like, they just decided I'd take on the responsibility without even asking me? "Yeah, pretty much," Jake admitted. "They've been planning for a while." I sat there in silence for a minute, just staring at the wall, trying to process everything. Part of me wanted to scream at Jake, but I knew it wasn't really his fault. He was just the messenger. But that didn't change the fact that my parents were about to screw me over in the biggest way possible. They weren't just asking for a favor. They were asking me to dedicate the rest of my life to cleaning up after them. I was done being invisible, but I sure as hell wasn't going to become their backup plan now. "So what am I supposed to do?" I asked, feeling more defeated than anything. "Just drop my whole life and move back home? Give up everything I've worked for?" Jake didn't have an answer for that. He tried to talk about how hard things were for our parents, how they were struggling to manage everything with my brother's care, but I didn't care. I'd spent my whole life being pushed to the side because I wasn't a problem. Now they wanted to use me because I was the only one who had my life together. It wasn't fair. I'm not doing it, I said, cutting him off mid-sentence. I'm not going to be their backup. They didn't give a crap about me for the last 25 years, and they sure as hell don't get to make me responsible for everyone now. Jake was silent for a second, then said, I get it, I do, but you're still part of the family. That word made me want to scream. Sure, I was part of the family, but only when it was convenient for them. Only when they needed something. When I was a kid, they didn't care if I was okay or if I needed help, but now that they were scared of what the future held, suddenly I was the one they needed. Tell them I'm not interested, I said, and don't bother calling me about this again. I hung up before Jake could respond. For a while, I just sat there staring at the phone, trying to calm down. I felt like my whole life had been leading up to this moment, where I'd finally had enough. Enough of the guilt trips, enough of the manipulative texts, enough of being ignored and then used. I wasn't going to be their safety net. A few days passed without any contact from Jake or my parents. It was almost like they were waiting for me to come to my senses, to change my mind and be the good daughter they'd suddenly decided I should be. But I wasn't about to budge. I wasn't going to let them dump their problems on me just because I was the only one left standing. Then a letter came in the mail. It was from my mom. She hadn't even called. She just sent a letter, like we were living in the 1800s or something. The letter was long and rambling, filled with the same guilt-tripping crap I'd heard before. She went on about how much they needed me, how hard things were for them, and how they didn't know what they were going to do if I didn't help. But what really pissed me off was the last part. My mom wrote, "We're not asking for much, Olivia. We just need to know that when we're gone, someone will step up for the family." That's when I realized what this was really about. They didn't care about me. They just cared about making sure their mess was cleaned up after they were gone. They didn't want me back in their lives because they missed me or loved me. They wanted me because I was convenient, because I was the only one who hadn't fallen apart. I crumpled up the letter and threw it in the trash. I was done. Update 1. After that letter from my mom, I thought I had reached my limit. I mean, what else could they throw at me that I hadn't already seen? I was already done with their guilt trips, their manipulations, their trying to make me responsible for their mess. But of course I was wrong. It wasn't over, not even close. A week or two after I trashed the letter, I got another call, this time from a number I didn't recognize. I almost didn't pick up, but something in me was curious. Maybe it was Jake again. Or maybe it was one of my parents trying a different number since I'd been ignoring theirs. Either way, I picked up. "Hey, Olivia, it's Sarah." Now Sarah is one of my sisters. We were never really close. I mean, she was always dealing with her own stuff, hospitals, therapists, all of it. I felt bad for her growing up, sure, but I didn't really know her. We were basically strangers living under the same roof, so hearing from her now, after everything, felt weird. Hey, I said, not sure where this was going. "Look," she started. "I know things have been kind of rough between you and Mom and Dad, but I really need you to listen to what I'm going to say." I could already feel my stomach sinking. Here it comes, I thought. More guilt, more trying to drag me back in. "What is it?" I asked, trying to sound neutral but already bracing myself for whatever crap was coming. She took a deep breath and then said, "They're not doing well, like, really not doing well. Dad's health is going downhill fast, and they're freaking out because no one's stepping up to help with the boys. They're scared, Olivia. They don't know what to do." I didn't say anything for a second. It wasn't that I didn't care. I did. I didn't want to see anyone suffer, not even my parents. But after everything, after years of them not giving a crap about me, I couldn't just rush in and fix things for them. I wasn't their band-aid. "I'm sorry to hear that," I said carefully. "But I can't just drop everything. I have a life too, Sarah." She sighed, and I could tell she was frustrated. "I get that, but you're the only one who's in a position to help. Jake's barely holding it together, and you know what's going on with me and the others. There's no one else, Olivia. They're desperate. Desperate because they ignored this for years." I shot back, feeling the anger bubble up again. They let this all build up, thinking it would just go away, and now, because I'm the one who managed to get out and make something of my life, it's my responsibility? That's not fair, Sarah. I know it's not fair, she said quietly. But this is where we are. They need help. And there it was again. The same old story. The same old guilt. No matter what I did, no matter how far I tried to move away from it, they always found a way to drag me back. I could feel the pressure building inside me, the frustration and resentment that had been simmering for years now coming to a boil. I'm not doing it, I said, my voice sharper than I intended. I'm not going to be the one to clean up their mess. They didn't care about me when I was a kid, and they sure as hell don't get to come to me now just because it's convenient. I've got my own life. They need to figure this out themselves. I could hear the hurt in Sarah's voice when she spoke again. I get it, Olivia, I really do, but this isn't about you or me. It's about the family. It's about what's going to happen to the boys when they're gone. If we don't step up, who will? That hit me hard, not because I suddenly felt responsible, but because it made me realize just how trapped we all were. My parents had spent years neglecting me, pushing me to the side, and now they were trying to use me as their escape plan. And my siblings, they were stuck in the middle of it all, just as trapped as I was, only they didn't have the strength to fight back. I'm sorry, I said again, softer this time, but I can't. I won't. There was a long pause, and I could feel the weight of her disappointment through the phone, but I wasn't going to cave, not this time. I couldn't. Okay, she said finally, her voice flat. I'll tell them. She hung up before I could say anything else, and I just sat there for a while, staring at my phone, feeling a mix of relief and guilt. I didn't owe my parents anything. I knew that, but still, it hurt. It hurt to know that my family was falling apart, and I was powerless to stop it. Or maybe I wasn't powerless, I just wasn't willing to sacrifice myself for them anymore. A few days later, I got another letter from my mom. This time, it was even worse. She didn't even bother with pleasantries. She went straight for the guilt trip. She wrote about how disappointed she was in me, how I was letting the family down, how she couldn't believe I would turn my back on them in their time of need. She threw in a bunch of stuff about how hard it was for her and my dad, how they'd sacrificed so much for us, and how she didn't know what she'd done to deserve a daughter who was so selfish. It was brutal, and for a second, it worked. I felt that old, familiar sting of guilt, the same guilt I'd felt my whole life growing up. But then I remembered all the years I'd spent being invisible, all the times they'd forgotten about me, all the moments I needed them, and they weren't there. And I realized that this wasn't about them needing help, this was about control. This was about them trying to pull me back into their web, to make me feel like I owed them something. But I didn't owe them anything, not anymore. I crumpled up the letter and tossed it in the trash, just like the last one. I was done. I was done being their pawn. I was done letting them manipulate me. I had my own life now, and I wasn't going to let them take that away from me. The next day, I blocked their numbers. I blocked Jake too, just to be safe. It wasn't an easy decision, but it was the only one that felt right. I couldn't keep letting them drag me down, keep making me feel like I was responsible for their problems. They made their choices, and now they had to live with them. For the first time in a long time, I felt free. Update 2, blocking their numbers felt like a relief, like this heavy weight had been lifted off my shoulders. For the first time in, well, ever, I had control over the situation. I wasn't sitting there waiting for another guilt-tripping message from my mom, or a surprise call from Jake. It was quiet, peaceful. But of course, that didn't last. About 2 weeks after I blocked them, I got a knock on my door. I wasn't expecting anyone, and honestly, I thought it might be a delivery or something. But when I opened the door, there she was, my mom, standing right there on my doorstep like she had every right to be there. I don't know how she found me. I mean, I hadn't exactly been hiding, but I didn't think she'd just show up at my place. She looked different, older, I guess. Or maybe it was just the stress. But either way, I could see that things hadn't been easy for her. But I didn't feel sorry for her, not anymore. "What are you doing here?" I asked, keeping my voice as calm as I could. She didn't answer right away. She just stood there, looking at me like she didn't recognize me. Finally she spoke. "We need to talk, Olivia." I sighed. "No, we really don't. I've said everything I needed to say. I've made my decision." She stepped forward, like she was going to come in, but I stood in the doorway, blocking her. I wasn't about to let her in and let this turn into another guilt trip. Please, just listen, she said, her voice softer now. Your father's getting worse. He's in and out of the hospital, and we don't know how much time he has left. I don't know what to do, Olivia. There it was, the card she'd been waiting to play. The "your father is dying" card. She didn't say it outright, but I knew that's what she was hinting at. And I'm not heartless. I didn't want my dad to suffer. But after everything they'd put me through, I couldn't just drop everything and rush to their side. I'm sorry, I said, trying to keep my voice steady, but this isn't my problem. You and Dad have had years to figure this out. You can't just show up now and expect me to fix everything. She looked at me like I'd slapped her. I'm not asking you to fix anything. I just need you to be there. For the family. For the family? I repeated, almost laughing. What family? The one that ignored me for 25 years? The one that only talks to me when they need something? That's not a family, Mom. That's just manipulation. Her eyes widened, and for a second I thought maybe she was going to argue with me. But instead, she just started crying, right there on my doorstep. She broke down in tears, and I didn't know what to do. I wasn't going to invite her in, but I couldn't just stand there and watch her cry either. Look, I said, my voice softer now. I get that this is hard for you. I really do. But I'm not your backup plan. I'm not the person who's going to come in and make everything okay. You made your choices. Now you have to deal with them. She wiped her eyes and looked up at me, and I could see the anger starting to replace the sadness. We did the best we could, Olivia. You don't understand what it was like, raising all of you, dealing with everything. We didn't have time for you because we were trying to keep everyone else alive. There it was, the excuse, the same excuse I'd heard a million times before. And that's not my fault, I said, my voice firm now. You made the choice to have 5 kids. You made the choice to focus on everyone else and leave me behind. That was your decision, not mine. And now you're trying to make me feel guilty for it. I won't do it, Mom. I won't. She stood there for a long time, not saying anything, just staring at me like she didn't know who I was anymore, and maybe she didn't. Maybe in her mind, I was still that little kid she could ignore because I wasn't causing trouble. But I wasn't that kid anymore. I was done being invisible. Finally, she spoke. So that's it? You're just going to turn your back on us? I shook my head. No. You turned your back on me a long time ago. I'm just finally walking away. She didn't have anything to say to that. She just turned and walked away, heading back to her car. I watched her go, feeling a strange mix of emotions. Part of me was sad, sure, but most of me just felt free. Like I'd finally let go of something I'd been carrying for years. Something I should have let go of a long time ago. After she left, I went back inside and sat down, trying to process everything that had just happened. I wasn't angry anymore. I wasn't even hurt. I was just done. Done with the guilt, the manipulation, the constant feeling like I wasn't enough. I wasn't going to be their backup plan. I wasn't going to be their last resort. I had my own life to live, and I wasn't going to let them drag me down anymore. The next few weeks were quiet. I didn't hear from anyone. No calls, no letters, nothing. And honestly, it was the best I'd felt in a long time. I focused on work, on my friends, on my life. I wasn't looking over my shoulder, waiting for the next message from them. I wasn't living in the shadow of their expectations anymore. And then, about a month later, I got an email. Not from my mom or my dad this time, but from Jake. It was short, just a few sentences, but it said everything I needed to know. Dad passed away last night. I thought you should know. I stared at the email for a long time, not really sure how to feel. I wasn't surprised. I knew this was coming. But I didn't feel sad either. I didn't feel much of anything, honestly. I thought about responding. I thought about calling Jake, asking how he was holding up, maybe even offering my condolences. But then I realized that this was just another step in the same cycle, another chance for them to pull me back in. And I wasn't going to fall for it this time. I closed the email without replying and went on with my day. I wasn't part of their world anymore, and I was finally okay with that.